Hello guys, so this is my monthly update thing that I like to do. I do think it's useful because it kind of just gives me an opportunity to check in and reflect on the month that's been. I think at some point I'll stop doing them, but not imminently. The main thing, of course, that's happened is that I've grown a beard over the last month and now shaved it into a goatee. Of course, at the start of April, as part of my April Fool's video, I addressed this claim that I was secretly trans, and one of the reasons I pointed out why people might say this is because I shave regularly, as if I consider having a beard to be a bad thing, and I pointed out it's not so much that I think having a beard is a bad thing, it's just that I'm one of those people who my beard comes in a bit patchy. But after making that, I thought, I haven't actually tried growing a beard in a very long time, like literally since the start of university, which was a long time ago. It was back when I first started making videos. And if you go back to my really old videos, I think you will see that I kind of have a beard. And again, I say beard, like I say, it was a bit patchy. That's kind of why I was like, oh, okay, it's not really working out. Anyway, this time I thought, I'm just going to kind of grow it, see how it works out. And I was like, it's not terrible, but it's still a bit patchy here. And I thought, this is pretty okay. I'm quite happy with this. So I was like, what, I'll keep this. So yay or nay for the goatee. I feel like having a goatee, it's a very, it's a douchebag thing, I think, which is not a good sign. But also, significantly, in all the old baby photos of me, which would of course be back in the mid-90s, my dad has a goatee. So I guess goatees were a thing in the 90s, but yeah, it kind of makes me, even though my dad now looks, very different from how he did in the mid-90s when I was a little baby, having a goatee still makes me feel like I'm trying to look like my dad. Or it makes me feel like, I don't know, in a weird way, it makes me feel like I'm signaling to my dad, like, that I'm planning on becoming a dad now. Like, I'm like, look, Dad, I've got the dad goatee, the young dad goatee. The only other thing you'll notice, and I think this is good because, there's this accusation going around that some gender-critical people are right-wing. But as you can see, I kind of have like a bald spot exactly where a Hitler moustache would be. So I'm so anti-fascist that I literally like my upper lip is rejecting any hair here because it's saying no Hitler associations here. I jest, but let's actually address the real substance of what happened this month. So this month it started off very well for two reasons. One, I actually hit $160 on Patreon. Now, that might not sound like a particularly interesting thing, but it is, because I've always said, and I think I've said this before and I'll say it again, I've never really entertained the idea that I could sustain a life off of this channel alone. I've always said that the best I could hope for is kind of incorporating this channel into my financial situation, such that I can maybe do it part-time, things like that. Like I can kind of reduce the amount of work I do in other areas so I can put more work on here and get to a situation where I may be doing less work on here than I am on here. However, as a kind of unrealistic, lofty goal, I did have this idea in my head that if I ever got $1,600 a month on Patreon, then at that point I could be like, yeah, you know what? And that's a modest kind of salary. I think it comes to like 20,000 basically a year. I was like, what, with that and how much I kind of enjoy doing this and how it kind of does make me feel like it is, more fulfilling than whatever, like a lame office job or something like that, I would definitely consider and probably end up doing this full time. And again, I don't think that's necessarily realistic, but interestingly, we did hit $160 on Patreon this month, which is not a goal of mine. That's the funny thing. Like I never had it as a goal, but when I was looking at it, I was thinking, that's interesting. And the interesting thing about it is, of course, that I have 2.8, and at the time I actually had 2.6 thousand subscribers. So I realized that if I ever got 26,000 subscribers, then admittedly based on some weird maths, because, you can't work this out just based on the maths alone. But in theory, if my subscriber to Patreon ratio remained the same, I would only need 26,000 subscribers before I could get that sort of money on Patreon. And of course, it's possible it could happen much sooner if, my next 100 subscribers all happen to be, willing to give me money on Patreon. And of course, it can happen much later if my next 25,000 subscribers all don't really want to give money on Patreon. So, there's not a one-to-one correlation, is what I'm saying. But I just thought that was an interesting thing to have happened. And, it was pretty cool. And it just made me think, hey, maybe 26,000, it's not impossible as a number. Now, having said that, again, I will stress that I don't really think it's particularly likely, but, it was just an interesting thing to see. The other thing I should stress is that I don't do this because I want it to be a job, because I think it would be easy. And I think that's kind of the key thing. I feel like political YouTubing, especially on the left, has this degree of cynicism to it that's kind of unfortunate, because you have these channels like, the big, I guess, three are like Sean, ContraPoints, and H-Bomber Guy, that get the, tens of, I don't know if it's tens of thousands, a lot of money per month. They get upper middle class, at least salaries when you take everything into account for what they're doing. And then the videos they produce, they make, let's say, generously one video a month, and the videos they produce don't take a month of work. If they're like working seriously, it doesn't take a month of work. And then you find out, in fact, that that a lot of the time they're hiring other people to do the research and the editing for them. So you realize you basically got these left-wing YouTube channels that are bringing in huge amounts of money and then paying people to do the work for them, and then they are living off and profiting off the surplus value of the labor of the people they're paying to work for them. It's kind of like the irony of socialist YouTubers doing that is really funny to me. Like, that's it. Like, basically they own the YouTube channel, which is like the means of production, and because they own that, they are bringing in all this money, and then they're because that's what capitalism is. Capitalism is making money off owning things, and that's basically what these left-wing YouTubers who own these massive YouTube channels are doing. They're making money off of owning this brand, off of owning this image, and then they're actually paying other people to do a lot of the hard work. And when you think about how irregularly some of these channels have upload, and then they're still like got credits saying like who did the research, who did the editing, who did this and that. It's like, well, shouldn't it be you? You're like the one who's bringing in all this money. I guess what I'm saying is that's not what I want to do. I want to basically work a 35-hour week. Anything I do in life, whatever it is, I think I want to put in the work for it. And if I ever did get to a situation where I was making a full-time wage off of this channel, I would put in full-time hours, probably more, to be honest, because I enjoy doing it. And that's the other reason, I'm not doing this necessarily as part of some kind of calculated effort to work out how I'm going to be making an income or something like that. I'm doing it because I genuinely think it's something which is valuable to be talking about. I think it's a serious issue that attention needs to be brought to it. And it makes me feel good when I see people kind of saying like, oh, thank you for talking about this. And also that I really like the community. So, there's like lots of good reasons to want to do this. But yeah, the one thing I just wanted to stress is I'm never going to be one of those people who's like, oh, I'm pulling in YouTube money now, so now I'm going to go off and I don't even know what these people do with their time, but clearly it's not making videos. Oh, and speaking of doing with your time, at the start of this month also, I was doing a schedule. And this is kind of what I mean when I say that I would like to have, say like, if you give me money on Patreon and, it's like a full-time salary thing, then I would say, hey, I'm going to do 35 hours, 9 to 5, 1 hour lunch break, working on this, if not more, because I have a schedule, and, my schedule is something that I enjoy sticking to. I find if I don't have a schedule, I really struggle. So I was doing that at the beginning of the month. That's an ominous kind of thing to bear in mind. And that was going quite well. So basically it's kind of like two good things coming together, which I guess speak to what in my ideal world this YouTube channel could be. One, the fact that I'm 1/10 of the way, which is quite impressive, I think, to having this as like a full-time job. Like this covers right now, this YouTube channel 10% what I would need as income, which is kind of like, that seems like a lot in my head. Like the fact that I'm just a guy sitting on my camera, and yet if I, 10%, that seems like quite a bit. And then also the fact that I'm doing this schedule, I'm sticking to it, and that's kind of good as well. I also went on holiday, which did interfere with my production, and that's something which I'd like to be able to avoid in the future. Like basically, I'd like to get to a situation where I've kind of like, I'm ahead of the curve. So even if I do go on a break, I can still upload like a couple of videos and then just catch up later on. So it's unfortunate I wasn't at that situation. But yeah, like basically what I'd like to be able to do is get to a point where my Patreon is big enough that it's basically like a point where even if I'm doing it half time, I can pretty much treat it a bit like a job and basically say, hey guys, these are the hours I'm doing, and basically like book off holiday, like treat it as if my patrons are my employers. So say, hey guys, I am not going to be able to do any work because I'm going to this place for like a week or something. So I'm booking off a week of holiday, and like have this kind of standard where basically I don't take the mick. I don't say like, oh, I'm going to book off a month or something like that. But, and I don't know exactly how much holiday would be appropriate. But again, like pretty much, even though, funnily enough, this isn't something I support, as like, I think it's unnecessary for people to work these kind of hours. I'm just lucky and I enjoy what I'm doing. Pretty much like a standard working hour, and also as much holiday as somebody would typically get in a year. So yeah, basically that's kind of what I want to do with holidays going forward. I don't know next time I'll be on a holiday, but basically booking time off is like what I'd like to do. I'd like to get to a point where I'm at a relationship with the people who support my work, that they know that I'm not going to be messing around with, the money that they choose to give me, and they freely give me, and I really appreciate that. That's like super cool. I really like that. So with that said, I obviously don't want to give the impression that I'm just like, I got all this, I'm rolling in it, so I can just go out and not work hard and make videos. No, I'm always going to have that standard of like, you give me money, and I basically act as if you are my employer, is what I want to be the situation. But right now, things are a bit unstable and hectic, and I'm not quite in a situation where I am stable enough. And this brings me on to my anxiety. So I want to start with the big positive, which is that you may have noticed that this anxiety thing, it's only really been an issue in March and April. It wasn't a big focus in February or January or December, which was basically, that's kind of like, I've been making videos quite regularly since December. It wasn't a big issue then. And that's actually a good thing, because I still had anxiety in December and January and February, but it just wasn't as bad. And the reason I say this is a good thing is because it does mean that it's not as if, I have this anxiety and it means it's going to always be this big prevailing thing every single month. In January and February and December, I didn't have any reason to kind of mention anxiety or anything like that. It just wasn't relevant. But obviously, these last 2 months it has been. And the annoying thing, so in a way, like the positive is that if I've been in a situation where I've had anxiety, but it's been under control and it's not interfered with my life that much before, I can get back to that again. The annoying thing is that my anxiety is very temperamental, and I really don't have any clear idea of what exactly causes it, which is obviously not great, because it makes it harder for me to kind of deal with it. It makes it harder for me to kind of work around it, because it seems like completely arbitrarily, sometimes I'll just feel really anxious and really on edge, and obviously that makes it very distracting and hard to do work. I was, like I say, keeping to my schedule, and I thought that was going to kind of help with my anxiety, and I think maybe it will, but in the long term. But perhaps it was just a shock to my system to basically be doing, because I was sticking to it, but it was very sort of regimented, it's this hour, I'm going to do this thing, do that for a bit, blah, 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 very strict. And perhaps going from, because during March and kind of the end of February, it was a bit more sort of freestyle. So maybe it was a bit of a shock to the system, just mentally. And because of that, I basically had a panic attack, and I've not had a panic attack in a quite a long while, like basically probably over a year since April, or mid-April, which is basically when it was. And then for some reason after that, I was basically just having a situation where I would just randomly, I haven't had a panic attack since, but randomly just get very on edge, and it would kind of manifest in like physical symptoms, like I would feel kind of discomfort kind of in my chest basically, which is, makes you more anxious. And I think I've mentioned this before, the kind of tingling, it comes from the fact that I actually get a muscle knot here, and it like often recurs. It's not there right now. It's a bit there. Maybe I'll just, no, I get a muscle knot there a lot. And that muscle knot and kind of the way I interpret that pain basically is what causes those symptoms. So it's kind of a case of it's muscle pain, which I think is caused by the anxiety and the stress, which then my brain interprets in a weird way. It's a difficult thing to shake, and I think I've mentioned I don't know if I have mentioned this, because there was a video I was going to do this month actually, which I ended up scrapping, and I didn't even know if I want to hint what it was about, but it was about somebody who had said some things about me, somebody who was somewhat big in the gender critical movement, who had like basically made some criticisms of me, essentially suggesting I was inauthentic. So I just wanted to like respond and be like, I'm not. And then at the end of it, I was like, well, it's kind of a pointless video because everybody who watches me will know I'm not inauthentic in kind of what I'm talking about. And I don't want to like start any kind of meaningful beef with this person, even though they are. And I'll just say, like, this is somebody who doesn't know me personally, and I don't know them personally. It's somebody who just apparently has seen my videos. I don't want to get into it, but basically, yeah. I made that video, and at the start of that video, I explained my issues with my anxiety. What I have been doing for the past basically 2 weeks is when I've been feeling anxious, I've just been going out and cycling for ages, and that's kind of helped. So I guess I'm like getting physically fit. Obviously, it does interfere with things and make it more difficult, because it's like whenever I feel anxious, I've got to go out. And then sometimes I'll be in a situation where I'm like, I feel a bit anxious, but do I feel that anxious? And I'll spend like more time thinking about, do I feel anxious? Like, yeah, thinking about whether or not I do feel like anxious enough to justify going out, that by the time I'm like finished, I might as well have just gone out. The other way I'm dealing with it is getting up earlier and going to bed earlier. I was about to say getting up earlier and going up later. that would be a good way to deal with anxiety. Sleep deprivation. So, and I think that's helping. I'm recording this quite early, and I guess it's kind of nice to know that it's hit lunchtime and you've already got quite a bit achieved. I'm not one of those people who believes that like being an early bird is inherently better. Like there are these people who kind of act as if like, oh, if you wake up at 6 a.m. or like even 5 a.m., that's like, oh, that's the peak of human performance. And if you wake up, at like 10 a.m. or even, 11 or 12, that must mean you're just a lazy lieabout. It's like, no, people have it. And I'm like, I'm a bit of a night owl, but I think it is true that there are some positive mental effects that come about from being awake for more daylight. Oh, I fucking hit my... There are some positive effects that come about from being awake for more daylight, and sleeping during the nighttime and not being up for the kind of darker night. And even though I find like the night quite kind of calm and cool and relaxing, I think you can make an argument that it's also a bit like miserable in a way. So I'm doing that too. And the other thing is, even though like it was kind of having the schedule that initially caused issues, I think I'm gonna try and stick with it, because I feel like having a schedule in general is good for me. I think it's good for my productiveness, and I think it really helps, because I think a lot of the time, especially in the morning, like if I wake up with a clear sense of purpose, then I feel like I'm more productive. And like today, for example, I woke up and I needed to use the toilet. So I did. I don't know why. We're adults here. I needed to urinate. And then I was there, and I was like, you know what? I'm up. I could just clean my teeth now. So I did. And I was like, you know what? I clean my teeth. I could just shower now. So I did. Actually, I showered first. Sorry, never mind. I showered first, then I clean my teeth. Because usually what I do is I wake up and I kind of just like lie about a bit. But this time I was like, I'm going to get up. And I do think like having that, and then you're like, yeah, I want to do things. And yeah, a lot of the time I find if the first thing I do when I wake up is be productive, then that makes me want to be productive throughout the whole day. And unsurprisingly, I guess if the first thing I do when I wake up is not really have any idea of what I want to do, just, watch a YouTube video because I'm like, oh, I just woken up, I don't really feel like doing anything, I'll just, check what's on YouTube. Then that kind of sets up my whole day. So that's why I think having a schedule is important. So point being, I'm going to stick with the schedule. When I say stick with it, I kind of fell off it a bit at Weymouth. So I'm going to kind of like go with the schedule. It's going to be like a modified schedule. It's not going to be full on, like I say, peak performance. But I'm reasonably happy with, I think, how it will work out. And I'm really hoping that by the end of next month, I'll basically be at a situation where I'm pretty much doing what I want to do with, let's say, a given week. Because, I do have days where I'm like completely just stick to the schedule, no problems, and I do like everything I want to do, and I feel like it's like a good balance of different things I'm doing. But yeah, other times I have like days and full-on weeks where I really feel like I haven't done everything I wanted to do. So yeah, I'm going to try and stick with it because it's fun. That's that. Schedule. One final thing, by the way, is that I do wonder to what extent my anxiety is caused by the inherent insecurity of my current situation, because while it is really cool that I've got the Patreon money, it kind of puts me in a situation where I know that I can kind of include this idea of Patreon in my potential future financial situation, but I also am aware that that's kind of a bit unstable and uncertain. And with that said, I don't think there's a solution there. I just think it means like as the kind of money on Patreon, I think, increases, I think I'll feel more like, yeah, this is like a pretty sure thing. I guess I will say, if you do give on Patreon, not only are you kind of, obviously compensating me for the work I put into my videos, but also you're potentially making it easier for me to make videos because you are alleviating some of the anxiety and stress that comes from not being able to fully predict what my financial situation is and like work out, as somebody in my mid-20s, whether or not I can, what I should be doing with my life, and whether or not like I should be, for example, getting a full-time office job to make sure I can get a house and things like that. You're helping me out by making it so Patreon is a bit more of a certain thing. And like I say, I'm not really anticipating being able to do this full-time, but be able to say like, so it's part-time, and therefore I can, at least know I'm saving some money and things like that. So yeah, if you are giving on Patreon, then that really is appreciated, and it does have a marked positive effect. So I guess, the executive summary here is, one, the fact that I'm getting the money I'm getting on Patreon is really cool, and I really appreciate it. And, it does make me feel like I could eventually start doing this. And like, obviously if I did it full time, I mean, that's like, I think I could realistically shoot for like 4 videos a week if I was doing this full time. And that would probably be like, I guess where it would max out, I imagine. So yeah, I could do that. 2, obviously to do that, I'd want to have this schedule, and I am going to try and stick to that. I do have a schedule, and it's basically a matter of, I'm not going to be, I don't think I can be one of those people who just doesn't do any work, doesn't put in the work. Because to be honest, even when I was on holiday in Weymouth, I still wanted to do work, and I wanted to actually produce things, and that's why in the end I ended up making that video on Someone Before I made, because I just can't do that. Like, I'm not happy if I just sit around lounging about doing nothing, and that's why I realized I need to do it. And sometimes I do it accidentally. Like sometimes, like I say, I set myself off in the wrong mood and I end up not achieving anything. But I feel miserable on those days when I don't achieve anything. I feel happy and fulfilled on those days when I do achieve things. Number 3 is that I have had my issues with anxiety, and that is annoying because it's like a weird I don't know if I mean disconnect, like kind of like a situation where, I guess, catch-22, where I feel like in some sense my anxiety is caused by not being able to achieve all the things I want to do, but it also in itself makes it so I struggle to achieve all the things I want to do. But I think I'm just going to get over it by kind of sticking with it and just kind of shooting for small incremental changes where each day I should be able to do more of what I want to do and overcome more of my anxiety and overcome more of those negative feelings, and that should work out. And like I say, I've had plenty of times in the past where, because my anxiety has been an on and off thing for the last 5 years, slightly over, and in fact 6 years basically, and I've never, I've had moments of just it not really affecting what I've been able to do at all, so that's good. And yeah, I guess those are the three things. So thank you.